You know that moment when your heart skips, and not in the sweet, butterflies in your stomach kind of way, but the kind that whispers, something's not right? Yeah, I ignored it. I ignored it when he started turning his phone over at dinner. I ignored it when he began coming home later than usual, smelling like cologne that wasn't his. I ignored it the day I caught him smiling at his phone and tucking it away when I walked in. Because I wanted to believe he loved me. I needed to believe it. My name is Rachel Monroe, and I thought I had found the kind of love you only see in indie films and overpriced Hallmark cards. It started at a downtown art gallery in Seattle on a rainy Thursday. I wasn't supposed to be there. My friend had an extra ticket and begged me to come. I was nursing the wounds of a breakup, working brutal shifts as a nurse, and convincing myself that being alone was better than being disappointed again. And then I saw him. He stood in front of a massive oil painting, one hand in his pocket, the other gently swirling a glass of red wine. He had the kind of presence that pulls the air out of a room, sharp cheekbones, deep brown eyes, dark hair that curled just slightly at the edges. And the accent. Oh, God. The accent. Beautiful, he said, glancing at the painting. And then at me. But not as beautiful as the woman beside it. It was cheesy. It should have made me roll my eyes. But instead I laughed. And just like that, I fell for Matteo De Luca, the Italian exchange student who was studying architecture and had dreams of building museums in every major city. For the next 6 months, it felt like a movie montage. Morning coffee dates, moonlit walks, candlelit dinners where he recited poetry in Italian I didn't understand. He said he'd never met anyone like me, smart, strong, warm. He said I made this foreign place feel like home. When he proposed at our favorite spot overlooking Puget Sound, I was breathless. It was fast, sure. But he cried when he asked. He got on one knee and trembled when he said, "Please let me build my life around you." Tell me, how do you say no to that? We had a courthouse wedding. Just me, Matteo, and my sister, Bree. He said his family couldn't fly in, and I believed him. I was too busy falling deeper, already picturing our future. Sunday brunches, late-night laughs, kids with wild curls, and Italian lullabies. Then, almost like flipping a switch, everything changed. It started small. He stopped texting me during the day. No more morning kisses, no more I love you before bed. He became quiet, cold, distant. I chalked it up to stress. He said he was looking for internships, that the pressure of his career was weighing him down, that he just needed time. But time didn't bring him back. It pulled him further away. One night, he didn't come home until after midnight. He said he was working late. He looked me straight in the eye and lied, without a single hitch in his voice. I knew it. I felt it. But I smiled anyway. Because what was I supposed to do? Accuse my husband? Then there were the whispered calls in Italian. Locked doors. The sudden secrecy about his laptop. Once, I reached for it to check a recipe, and he snatched it away like I'd touched a ticking bomb. Still, I made excuses. Maybe it was a cultural difference. Maybe he was just stressed. Maybe love just faded sometimes, and this was normal. But deep down, I was drowning in the silence he left behind. Then came the night I broke. It was almost midnight. Matteo was in the shower, and his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it. But something, call it intuition, desperation, or just pure pain, pushed me. The message was in broken English. Good night, my love. I miss you more, every day. Ti amo, marito mio. I love you, my husband. My world stopped. My fingers went numb. My heart thundered in my chest like it was trying to warn me all over again. He wasn't just distant. He was cheating. And worse, he had another wife. I sat on the edge of the bed. The message burned into my brain, trying to steady my breath before he came back in. I stared at the bathroom door and wondered who the hell I had married. The man who kissed my forehead and promised forever wasn't real. The man who held me during night shifts and swore he'd never leave. He was a lie. And I had been used. That night, as Matteo stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel and humming like nothing had shattered, I made a decision. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply looked up at him and said, We need to talk. Because that was the night I stopped being his wife and started becoming his reckoning. There's a moment, right after the truth explodes, when time goes still. Not in a cinematic, slow-motion way. No, it's more cruel than that. Your world shatters, and instead of screaming, you just stand there, frozen in the wreckage, waiting for your brain to catch up. That was me, staring at the man I married, phone still warm in my palm, heartbeat ringing in my ears like a siren. Mateo looked up from his towel, brows raised like I'd interrupted something trivial. We need to talk, I repeated, this time with steel in my voice. He froze. Just for a second. Then came that practiced, infuriating smile, the one he used on waiters and professors. The charming mask. Of course, Samore. What's wrong? 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 I didn't answer. I simply turned the screen toward him. The message from Daniela. The one that read like a knife to my ribs. Ti amo, marido mio. His smile twitched. Flickered. Died. He didn't deny it. Didn't gasp, didn't beg, didn't even lie. He just laughed. Softly, at first. Then deeper. Darker. Wow, he said, stepping past me to grab his pants from the floor. Didn't think you had it in you. In me? I echoed, still clutching the phone like it might save me from drowning. What the hell does that mean? He exhaled, like I was a child who didn't understand how the world worked. You were useful, Rachel. Don't make this more dramatic than it needs to be. Useful. That word dropped into the pit of my stomach like acid. I married you, I whispered, half to myself. I loved you. I know, he said, buttoning his shirt. That's what made it so easy. I can't tell you how long I stood there, watching the stranger peel off his costume. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Our love. Our story. A perfectly crafted performance. And I'd been his opening act, his set design, his green card delivery service. Daniela? I said, voice shaking. Is that your real wife? Not wife. Fiancé, he corrected casually like it mattered. We've been together since university. She's waiting in Milan. Once my residency's locked, we file for her visa. Easy. Easy, I repeated, stunned. You played your part well, he said, slipping on his watch. You were sweet. A little naive, maybe. Emotional. But sweet. My knees buckled. I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly cold, dizzy. My entire marriage was a transaction. A checklist. Date her. Charm her. Marry her. Secure the papers. Dump her. You never loved me, I whispered. I don't even know what love means, Mateo said, walking to the mirror to fix his hair. But I know survival. And in this world, love doesn't get you residency. You do what you have to. And I was just convenient. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. You were perfect for the role. American. Independent but not skeptical. Lonely. You were ready to fall. I just gave you the push. I should have screamed. Should have thrown something. Should have torn the room apart. But I didn't. Because in that moment, a strange calm settled over me. One born not of peace, but clarity. The kind that surfaces right before a storm. I stood up, walked to the closet, and pulled out my suitcase. What are you doing? He asked. Packing. For what? For leaving, I snapped. You think I'm going to stick around and let you finish your scam? His lips twitched into that smug little smirk again. You leaving won't stop the process. I've already filed. You signed the marriage documents. It's done. You're right, I said quietly, folding my scrubs into the bag. But we're done, too. Don't come near me again. Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. That word again. Dramatic. As if betrayal, humiliation, and manipulation were emotions to be managed politely. I didn't say another word. I left the apartment that night, keys on the counter, heart in pieces. The next day, I filed for divorce. The woman at the legal aid clinic barely looked surprised when I explained. Turns out, green card marriage scams weren't rare. And rarely reported. But if you have proof, she said, you can go to immigration authorities. Proof. At that moment, I had rage, heartbreak, and a few texts from Daniela. But something in me clicked. If Mateo used me like a pawn in his game, if I was nothing more than a stepping stone in his immigration ladder, then I'd be the one to knock him off the top. He thought I was broken. He thought I was done. What he didn't realize was that heartbreak doesn't destroy every woman. Sometimes, it rebuilds her into a weapon. The day I walked out of our apartment with my dignity barely intact, I promised myself one thing. He would regret using me. But revenge isn't a tantrum. It's a strategy. And I wasn't about to hand him mine on a silver platter.
No.
I would let him keep living in his smug little bubble while I quietly built the storm that would swallow him whole. I moved in with my sister Bree for a few weeks, trying to pick up the pieces. She offered wine, hugs, and an endless supply of "you deserved better" talks, but what I really needed was clarity. So, I did what any emotionally wrecked, freshly divorced woman would do. I opened Google and typed in, "how to report immigration marriage fraud." Turns out, it wasn't as simple as filling out a form. Immigration fraud cases are complicated, buried under red tape, and rarely pursued unless there's hard evidence. And I had a few texts, a smirk, a gut feeling. Not enough. So I started collecting. First, I went through everything Mateo had ever sent me, emails, texts, photos. I cataloged the timeline of our relationship, when he arrived, when we got married, when his behavior changed. I remembered all the times he said things like, "we just need to stay married for a while, then things get easier." Back then, I thought he meant emotionally. Now, I knew better. Still, it wasn't enough to prove fraud. I needed him to confess, or someone close to him to slip up. Enter Daniela, the fiancée, the woman whose name had haunted me for weeks. I created a new email account, disguised my voice, and posed as someone new, another woman Mateo was seeing. I crafted a message in broken English, pretending to be devastated. I said I thought he loved me, that I found her number in his phone, that I had no idea he was engaged. I said I was pregnant, that I was scared, alone. I needed her to feel threatened. Within a day, she replied. She was furious. "You're lying," she wrote. "Mateo would never cheat on me. We've been together 10 years. 10 years. While he was romancing me, marrying me, whispering forever, he'd been planning this life with her all along." She sent photos, screenshots, love letters. There it was in writing, Mateo telling her he was only with me to get the documents. That once he was through the system, they could be together again. He even joked that I was the golden ticket. My hands shook as I read the messages. Anger doesn't feel like fire. It's ice. Cold. Sharp. It moves through you slowly, until it becomes you. And in that moment, I wasn't Rachel the victim anymore. I was Rachel the executioner. I compiled everything, dates, texts, screenshots. I reached out to a pro bono immigration lawyer, explaining I was a potential fraud victim. I told her everything, except I left out one detail, that I wasn't just seeking justice. I wanted revenge. The lawyer helped me understand what USCIS looks for: patterns, contradictions, and evidence of deception. Marrying for a green card is a federal crime, but proving it requires someone brave enough to testify. And I was done being quiet. Then came the hardest part. I contacted Mateo. I pretended I was seeking closure. Told him I missed him. That maybe, someday, we could try again. That I'd always love him.
It made me sick to say it.
But the minute he took the bait, I knew it was worth it. We met at a cafe on Capitol Hill. I wore a wire. Yes, a real one. The lawyer arranged it with the local immigration fraud unit. My palms were sweating, but I smiled like nothing had ever happened. Like I was still the same heart-struck woman who married him in a courthouse. He smiled, too. The same crooked, arrogant grin. "You look good," he said. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I've been thinking a lot," I replied. "About us." He reached for my hand. "It wasn't all fake, you know. Wasn't it?" He chuckled. "Okay, maybe a little. But you were amazing. Honestly, you made it easy. The green card thing, everyone does it. It's just survival."
Click.
That's the moment I knew I had him. And he had no idea. We chatted for another 15 minutes. He told me Daniela would be joining him soon. That once she got here, they might move to LA more Italian-friendly, he joked. By the time I left, I had everything I needed. I sent the recordings, documents, messages, everything to Homeland Security and USCIS. Then I waited. 3 weeks passed. Nothing. Then, one sunny afternoon while I was back on shift at the hospital, I got a call from the immigration agent. Mateo had been flagged. They were building a case. If convicted, he'd face deportation and prison time. I hung up the phone and stared at my reflection in the break room mirror. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. Mateo thought I was weak. A lovesick nurse who'd crumble after the betrayal. But I wasn't just the woman he used. I was the woman who caught him. And I wasn't finished yet. You'd think justice would feel like fireworks. But for me, it started with a wedding invitation. It arrived in the mail, thick cream cardstock tucked inside a golden envelope, as if it were a gift. My name handwritten in looping script. Rachel Monroe. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Matteo De Luca and Daniela Rossi. June 18th, St. Vito Church, San Francisco, California. I stared at it for a long time, heart still, eyes dry. He had the audacity. He was marrying her. In public. Loud and proud. Like everything he'd done to me meant nothing. Like he had gotten away with it. But what he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd already delivered my parting gift. 2 weeks earlier, I'd sat down across from a U.S. immigration officer, sworn and under oath, and told them everything. I turned over emails, text logs, the recorded conversation from that cafe, and the timeline of lies Mateo spun around me like a spider's web. They said they would investigate. I said, make it count. And then I waited. When that wedding invite arrived, it didn't feel like an insult. It felt like an opportunity. So I RSVP'd yes. I bought a dress that didn't whisper heartbreak. It screamed rebirth. Deep crimson silk. Open back. Slit up the side. The kind of dress you wear not to mourn a love story, but to bury it. The church was breathtaking. Marble arches, white lilies, candles flickering like tiny witnesses. Guests murmured in Italian, smiling, laughing, unaware that they were about to attend the most unforgettable wedding of their lives. I sat in the second row. I wanted him to see me. When the music swelled and Daniela began her slow walk down the aisle, I looked at Mateo. He was at the altar in a tailored suit, eyes locked on her like a man finally reaching his prize. He hadn't seen me yet. Until he did. His eyes flicked down, casually scanning the crowd, and then froze on me. Our gazes locked. And for the first time, he looked afraid. His smile faltered. I tilted my head and gave him a small, knowing smile. He knew. He knew something was coming, but not when, not how. The ceremony continued. Vows exchanged in Italian. She was radiant, glowing with love. I almost pitied her. Almost. And then, just as the priest asked if anyone had any objections to the union, the church doors burst open. 2 men in dark suits stepped in, followed by another in a federal badge. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Immigration enforcement, one of them said, voice calm but commanding. We're here for Matteo De Luca. The priest stumbled over his words. Daniela turned sharply, eyes wide. What's happening? She asked Matteo in Italian. He didn't answer. He was too busy staring at me. Mr. De Luca, the agent repeated. We have evidence of immigration fraud, including recorded confessions and multiple testimonies. Daniela's face crumpled in confusion and betrayal. What is he talking about? Matteo, what is this? Matteo turned to her, then to me. You did this, he hissed. I stood, my heels clicking like punctuation against the marble. No, I said evenly. You did this. I just made sure you didn't get away with it. Gasps followed as the agents cuffed him in front of everyone. The priest backed away. Guests whispered. Someone began recording. Daniela was crying now, loud, messy sobs. You used me too? Was I just the next passport? He didn't answer.
Couldn't.
He was too busy being read his rights. As they walked him down the aisle, past the lilies, past the rows of shocked faces, he turned once more to look at me. But the charm was gone, the arrogance, the smirk. All that remained was a man exposed. I didn't move,
Didn't blink.
I wanted him to remember that moment, to know I stood there, not as the girl he lied to, but as the woman who brought him down. Daniela collapsed into a pew, sobbing into her bouquet. And though a part of me wanted to comfort her, I knew she had her own journey now. Her own healing, like I once did. I walked out of the church alone, into the sun, into the silence, into my next chapter. Weeks later, I received confirmation. Mateo's visa was revoked. He'd faced deportation after trial. His entire immigration record flagged for fraud. And his wife, the one he sacrificed everything for, wanted nothing more to do with him.
Poetic.
I returned to my life slowly, shift by shift, breath by breath. But something had changed in me. I was no longer the woman who waited for someone to save her. I was the rescue. And though Mateo tried to use me as a means to an end, I became the ending he never saw coming. So no, I didn't get the fairy tale. But I got something better. The truth. And the power to write my own story.